Hello everyone. Today's video essay topic thing is going to be a little bit different. I finished reading War and Peace pretty recently, also by Leo Tolstoy. Loved the book series, and instead of making just one long video that's would be I don't know 2 hours long on this topic, I was thinking of making kind of sectioning out into parts. So this is part one of, I'm thinking 8 or 9. We'll see how much I get in for each video, but this will be a multi-part series, so please just keep that in mind. I'm not going to cover the entire book with this one, but I'm going to kind of go through the beginning parts of the novel as well as introducing some of the main characters. So without further ado, this is episode 1 of War and Peace. I'm titling it Before the Storm, the World That Creates War and Peace. So before War and Peace begins, before one of the main characters, Pierre, wanders into a saloon, before Andrew rides off into the war, before Natasha ever dances, the world is already in motion. And history is gathering momentum. Europe is reshaping itself, and the characters we're about to follow are being shaped by forces they don't even yet understand. This episode looks at the world before 1805, the true beginning of Tolstoy's story, and how these early conditions set the stage for everything that follows. Our story does not begin in Russia, but rather in France. The French Revolution has shattered the old order. Monarchs across Europe are terrified, and in the chaos, a young military officer named Napoleon Bonaparte rises with impossible speed. So by the late 1790s, Napoleon has already conquered Italy, he's invaded Egypt, and returned to France as a national hero. And in 1799, he seizes power in a coup and becomes the first consul. His legend, the myth of the great man, is already forming, and this myth will haunt the entire novel. Tolstoy never shows Napoleon's early life, but he expects us to feel its weight, because by the time War and Peace begins, Napoleon isn't a general. He's a symbol of ambition, of destiny, of the illusion that one man can control history. Now, meanwhile, in Russia, they're going through their own transformation. Catherine the Great's long reign has ended, and her son Paul I rules briefly and erratically. And in 1801, after Paul's assassination, the young Alexander I becomes emperor. Alexander is idyllic, educated, and eager to reform Russia, but he inherits a country torn between Enlightenment dreams, conservative aristocracy, and a military still shaped by rigid Prussian discipline. This tension between progress and tradition becomes the psychological landscape of War and Peace. It's the world that produces the Bolkonskys, the Rostovs, and Pierre Bezukhov. So before the novel opens, the three major families are already embodied into different kind of Russians. So the first is the Bolkonskys. They represent duty and discipline. Old Prince Bolkonsky is a relic of Catherine's era, brilliant, severe, obsessed with order, and his son Andrei grows up in the atmosphere of rationality and restraint. His marriage to lies feels suffocating. His longing for a great deed is already burning. The Rostovs, they represent warmth and impulse. So they're the emotional heart of Russia, per se. Their home is full of music, laughter, and financial irresponsibility. It's very clear in the novel. Natasha is still a child. She represents pure vitality. And Nikolai, who's also one of the main characters, he dreams of heroic cavalry charges. The world is chaos, but it's very alive. And the third family, the Bezukhovs, primarily Pierre, they represent identity and inheritance. So Pierre grows up abroad, half-educated, half-formed. He's kind of unsure of who he really is. And his father, Count Bezukhov, is dying in the beginning of the novel. So Pierre's search for meaning begins long before he inherits anything. Tolstoy doesn't introduce these families as blank slates. They're already shaped by the world around them, and by the contradictions of Russian society. To understand War and Peace, you have to understand the world of Russian high society. French is the language of the elite. European fashions dominate. Salons debate Napoleon as if he's a character in a play. Intellectualism is fashionable, but shallow. And beneath all of this lies a vast population of serfs, whose lives the aristocracy barely acknowledges. Tolstoy uses this world to critique the artificiality of aristocratic life. It's a world of masks, a world Pierre doesn't fit into. Andrei wants to escape, and Natasha will eventually outgrow. This is the stage on which the novel opens. By the early 1800s, Europe is headed towards another conflict. Britain, Austria, and Russia form the third coalition to stop Napoleon's expansion. Alexander I dreams of liberating Europe. Russian officers romanticize war, and the army begins to mobilize. By the time the first chapter of War and Peace begins, the war is already inevitable. The characters are stepping into a story that started long before they were born. And similarly, Tolstoy's characters don't appear out of nowhere. Their arcs also begin before page 1. So specifically, Andrei Bolkonsky, he feels wrapped up by domestic life. He wants glory, purpose, and something larger than himself. So the war becomes his escape. As for Pierre Bezukhov, he returns from Europe full of half-formed ideas. He doesn't know who he is, he doesn't know what he believes, and he's searching for meaning the entire time. Natasha represents pure life, spontaneity, innocence, possibility. She's the emotional counterweight to the coming war. Nikolai dreams of honor and heroism, and the war to him is that rite of passage. These psychological seeds will grow into the novel's major arcs. And before the beginning of the story, Tolstoy also planted the themes that define war and peace. These include some topics such as history is not shaped by great men, human beings overestimate their control, society's performance, authenticity is rare and precious, the search for meaning drives every character, and the tension between vitality and rationality, so that could be like between the Rostovs and the Bolkonskys, mirrors the tension within Russia itself. This is the world the characters inherit. This is the world they will struggle against, and this is a world that will be transformed by the events of 1805. So I hope this gave you guys a good background of the novel. In the next episode of the series, we're going to be actually entering the year of 1805, so when the novel truly begins. Russia's going to be heading into war, Andrew's going to ride into Austerlitz, and Pierre is thrust into a life he never expected, as well as Natasha taking her first steps into adulthood. History is accelerating, and the lives of our characters are about to collide with it. So I'll post that hopefully soon. Stay tuned for the next episode, which I'll actually get into the stuff involving the beginning of the book. And thank you all for watching this one. Have a great day.